Aaron was kind enough to send me an introduction for his dad, and I conveniently forgot it at home, and Tom didn't bring it either, but then I thought about it, and I thought, really, I'm introducing somebody who needs no introduction. When I first crossed paths with Bruce, I think it was around 2000, and he was predicting the boom that would come from 2000 to 2006. And then I heard him a couple times since then, and then a very memorable time that I saw him speak was at the Corona Board of Realtors at Tigar, and I think it was 2005, it may have been 2006, but I'm pretty sure it was 2005, where he was talking about how the market was really due for a major correction. And I remember that very well because all the realtors in the meeting, when the meeting was over, when he was done speaking, you could hear a pin drop. And all the realtors were saying, oh, you can't believe him, things are great, they're going to keep going just fine, we're going to sell a ton of houses. What does he know? And what I knew at that time was he had successfully predicted the boom. And I started saving my money when he said that, Bruce. That the market was due for a major correction. He was right then, too. So our speaker today is someone who I value his economic advice and opinions and projections as far as what's going to happen in the future more than I do John Using. I think I told Al that last week. So a local guy who's known throughout the nation for his economic forecasting, particularly for the Inland area. Very proud to produce Bruce Norris. Bruce?
Sorry for the face. This is what happens when you don't see your dermatologist but once every 3 years. You catch up, so oh well. How many of you have never heard of me before? I really thought there'd be a lot of hands. That's funny. Okay. The prediction business is scary because you put it in writing. If you're wrong forever. And in '97 we predicted that prices would double in 8 years. In 2006 we predicted you could have thousands of % increase in foreclosures and prices could go down by half. The only reason I study all that stuff is I have a lot of money involved in the real estate market. I find it interesting, we head into 2014 biting our nails going, uh-oh. And I'm a chart guy. I see no chart that tells me uh-oh at all. You are going to have a very fun year. This is about to kick up. Volume's going to go up. I'm curious, what chart makes you fearful? What is it that you're going, wow, this is much different than a year ago? See, I look at 2013 in January and 2014 in January. How much is inventory up?
A little bit more this year than last.
Yeah, but it's almost nothing. It's literally almost nothing. So do you have less demand or more demand starting 2014 or 2013? So you're going to have a lot of demand land on no more inventory. What happened in 2013 when the demand landed on the inventory we had?
Multiple overbidding.
Doesn't that make sense? I mean, how could it go otherwise? Okay, so I'm not afraid of this. We have about 40 houses for sale right now. I'm very happy we have every one of them because we're not getting 8 showings a day for our inventory. My question, I guess, is I wonder why they're not all pulling the trigger, but they're starting to, and I think by spring and summer we will have one heck of a fun time. I don't see where a lot of other inventory is going to come from, you know. So that's the thing. We'll look at charts, but I just don't enter this year going, oh, this is scary. I completely disagree with that. And again, because I look at charts and believe in them more than I believe how I feel. This is why, if we've been successful at predicting, you have to take how you feel and toss it in the trash can, because when you're in 2006 and you make a statement that this market could go down by 50% and I would get your stuff out of harm's way, that isn't how you felt in '06. How we felt in '06 was it was all wonderful. Was it maybe too wonderful? Well, that's what charts will tell you. It's like it's too wonderful. In 2009, was it too ugly?
Yeah.
Like where prices, you know, 300 grand houses were selling for 60 grand in Reno Valley, and we had investors go, well, I'm not going to buy one of those. It's going to go down more. Well, it's a 20% of value. I mean, is that maybe time to buy something? I mean, but that chart tells you that. But your emotion would go, oh, this is scary. Real estate's very scary, so I'm not going to touch that. So that's just human nature. So anyway, time is short, so well, we may get stuck on this chart since that's not moving. Is it on? It's not on. Huh. Well, I'm glad. Anyway, most of you guys know what we do. We buy and sell houses. It's one part of the business. So we, between 70 and 100 houses a year, we fix and resell. We have a hard money loan division that does between 300 and 400 a year, funding people that we taught the business to. So about 400 or 500 times a year, we get to see what would we consider a wholesale deal and see it soars and see what the discount is. So even in a market where you have pretty brisk sales, there's always somebody that can find something below market. And where those deals emerged from changed. Years ago, it was REOs, and it started to be short sales. A year from now, if you're in short sales, are you going to still be in short sales? No. You'll probably have a law change by January 2015 that'll take away the tax benefits. You'll probably have a price increase that'll take out most of the rest of the negative equity. So if you're in short sales, you may have a really good 2014, but figure on doing something else in 2015. We have a radio show. If you go to the Norris Group website, you can access any one of 500 or 600 shows that we've done. Leslie Appleton Young would be a typical guest that we've interviewed over the years. So we try to interview people that are pertinent to our business and that have something that might be insightful for us to know. Our basic business models, we take this house, turn it into that house, and we do it a lot of times. Prices, obviously, we've gone up a lot from the peak, from the bottom, and we had this wonderful run-up in price that was built on the backs of very silly financing. So we're not going to have that financing happen to us this time, but we are going to have people interested in real estate, and the interest rates combined with their price still results in a payment that's affordable. And so that's why people will say yes. What's also happened is you have a lot of people that used to be upside down, start to be breaking even, having equity, so that's a very healthy sign, which basically tells you you're not going to have this shadow inventory glut. There are some REOs that are coming back on the market, but not enough to be a game changer at all. Unsold inventory at the end of December, 3 months. I looked at an IBAR report yesterday. So you have different areas that have inventory up, but Riverside's down, Marina Valley's up maybe 6%, which is nothing. It's just not a big deal. This inventory level is just about the same as it was in 2013. Historically, and this is, again, because I've made a study of charts, it's very difficult to go up in inventory when you have price increases. It's just hard to do. And as we'll talk about, the shift of who is selling properties is very important too. Our sales have been declining. I know you guys have felt that. These sales are not spectacular, by the way. For the last 4 or 5 years, it's really been a very consistent pace of something like 400 to 425,000. I would think this market would have a capacity to sell 550,000 homes if, in fact, you had inventory. It's going to be hard to get the inventory. Oddly enough, what happens is this is a line of prices. So this price projection, and this is volume. So what happens, it's interesting, we think, okay, well, the more prices go up, probably the less sales will happen. It's just the opposite. This is the volume of sales, this is price. This, by the way, is going from 34 grand to 100 grand. That's a pretty good price increase. Volume goes up. Here we had our run in the 80s, volume goes up. Here we had our run, volume goes up. Your volume is going to go up in the next few years because that's what humans do. Do we buy it when it's on sale? No. We buy it when the market's got momentum. That's what we do. So that's in front of you, okay? By the way, you ought to maybe buy something once in a while and hold it. Put on a little investor hat and say, you know what, I'm going to join that party. Because how many of you experienced in the last run, and some of us with gray hair, time before that, and even the time before that, where you go, I'm helping all these guys get rich. They're buying this stuff, and it's turning out to be a 100 grand bonus when they sell it, or more. This is very important here. 84% of our business now in California is equity sales, 81% in the Inland Empire. When people are equity sellers, what do they do at the close of escrow?
Buy
Buy
some
another
more.
house. Really hard to go up in inventory when almost 80% of your sellers become buyers the next day. So how do you go from 3 to 6 months of inventory? I'd like to know. You don't. The other thing is we're completely ignoring, we just created, whoever owned a house in January of 13 now has enough equity to become a 20% down payment buyer. We just created a move-up market out of thin air where people have so much more dollars in equity than they used to. That you could have a move-up market, big down payments, get rid of PMI. That's a very big deal to me, so we can't ignore that. All the numbers of foreclosures headed down, pre-foreclosures scheduled for sale, bank-owned. Aaron tricks me with these charts once in a while where they, isn't that fancy? Well, this is a progression. This is a big deal. When you started in 2013, equity sales were like 60%. Now they're over 80. It's a big deal. So in January of 2013, when you had sales, only 60% of the people probably were rebuyers. Now it's something like 85. So that's a big deal for a marketplace. This is, again, historical sales. This is just a shorter chart, but the gold is investor sales and non-investor sales. So as prices progress, if we thought the investor in gold, or they were going back going, no, that's too expensive now, it doesn't cash flow, I won't buy it. Is that what the chart tells you? No. It doesn't, that isn't what we do. We buy more of the stuff. And we rationalize, well, I know it has a negative cash flow, but it's going up 25% a year, so I'll still buy one. Don't mistake that this all is allowed to happen. We had another chart. Remember, all those volumes went up with lender participation. So that's the missing link right now, but it's about to be fixed. Kerry Pierce just sent, I don't know if you guys know Kerry Pierce, I've known him for a long time. He just sent me yesterday 6 new programs that Provident Bank is coming out with, that they're allowed to fund. I know they don't probably fund their own money only, obviously, but they were better. They were more aggressive programs. Somewhere during 2014, we're going to be driving around and we're going to hear a word, nothing down, or stated income, because the private market is ready to pounce on the financing of houses because it's going to be very profitable. Right now they have a big pile of financing for investors. It's called B2R, I think it is, basically money to rental. But that's a very small percentage of the market compared to the owner-occupant market. And I think they're going to figure out, you know what, if we can, remember driving around somewhere around 2000, somebody came out with an ad and it was 125% loan to value? Didn't that seem absolutely nuts? I wonder how many foreclosures they had, because a year later it was 100% LTV and the year after that it was 75. So somebody's going to come out with some aggression and literally own that side of the market. And then a competitor is going to look at that and go, well, look at their default rate. They didn't lose anything. And you're going to start this whole thing. So while we all drink this Kool-Aid of we're going to buy more real estate as prices go up, the only way lenders are going to survive in an interest rate environment that probably will go up is to create purchase product, because the refi market is going to be a big percentage of their business. That make sense? Okay. Affordability. Now, all the way down here, no, is this a big drop? Yes. Is this a scary number? No. Okay. You just have to say, is this a good time to sell? This chart is now 32%. So if you're going to just sell based on affordability, you would sell in 01, you would sell in 87, you would sell in 78. Would those have been good years to sell? If you were afraid of the next person being able to afford the payment, the answer would be a resounding no way. You go up a lot in price from 32 to 17. And 17 seems to be the number that I trust. We went way below that. Whenever you do writings on projections, you look at charts and you say, okay, this is a postulate I believe in. You hit 17% affordability, that's the end of a boom. And then we go here, where I'm writing in '05, it's over, and then we go up in price in '06, and affordability goes from 17 to 11. At the time, I didn't understand what a collateralized debt obligation was. I didn't know all that nonsense they were doing, and I hadn't borrowed money in a few years, so I didn't know that it was that easy to borrow money. So when this happened, I started to go, okay, well, why is this chart telling me that we're so over financing that we're allowing prices to go way higher? That's what it turned out to be. So what I'm saying is, I trust 17% affordability telling me it's over, and we still have a long way to go until we get there. Basically, I think that's where I would be comfortable saying, when we get there, by a combination of interest rate hikes or price hikes, then I would be cautious about thinking we're going to have more aggression in price. This is how it changes if your affordability goes down as your interest rate goes up. So right now we're at what, 4.5? Went to 6.5 today at our median price of 415. We'd have a 25% affordability. So that's how it gets affected. Do you think we're going to see a 6.5% mortgage rate this year? So what happens is, to get to a 25% affordability, it'll have to be on the back of price increases. And you still have plenty of room for price increases here. That's how your payment changes if interest rates go up, and how much you have to make. What's lost in those charts is when people sell their residence, usually they take that big pile of money and they put it toward the next house. And they're not really borrowing 80% loan to value. They're borrowing less when they bring a big pile of equity. What's interesting in Riverside, and this is the part of the puzzle that's not going to be as much competition as normal, is the builders. This is when we're building a lot of homes, we're building about 5,000 now, but the big chart for me is the creation of subdivisions. In 2013, if you thought builders were feeling pretty good and optimistic, they still only created 23 subdivisions. The final numbers are in. That's number 23 for Riverside. 23 subdivisions when we normally create over 300 when we're doing well. For some reason, they're having to be cautious, maybe because the price hasn't gotten up to the point where it pencils. Because there's a lot of expense in creating building lots. But what I'm saying is, you're now down, what, 6 years running at very low subdivisions. You're not going to have a big glut of new homes even possible. You're going to have to build on existing building lots. And there's not that many. So all the competition that usually comes from new homes is not going to materialize in any meaningful way this year, that's for sure. FHA's loan business has gone down, I think a lot because they have a lot of investor cash, but also now they just lowered the loan amounts, as you guys know. Let me ask you, how big of an effect is that on your business? Your clientele, what is the loan amount in Moreno Valley or Riverside, the maximum loan for FHA?
350.
55? Okay. The biggest thing that did is somebody lost their house in a foreclosure 3 years ago. FHA's the only loan they can get, right? Or is that wrong? Can they get a conventional Fannie Mae loan after 3 years? No, that's still 7? Okay. 4?
7.
4 or 7? I got 4. I feel like an auctioneer.
20% down, it's less.
20% down is
Fannie Mae
less?
will buy it, yeah.
Okay. And it's less than, what's the shortest period of time they'll say yes to? Is it 4 years?
Fannie Mae?
Yes.
20% down is after either 2 or 3 years. I don't know, because I get so few 20% down conventional deals 2 years after foreclosure.
4 years we're having?
Yeah.
All right. These are credit scores of the good old days. This is FHA, I don't know if you can see this. 23% of FHA loans in 2008 were made to FICO scores of 300 to 579. I didn't even know you could have a 300 FICO score. And I certainly didn't know you could get a loan. And then 680 to 639. 60% of FHA's business was to a FICO score of 639 or below, and now it's 9.3. So this is about to change, to be meeting in the middle somewhere. It's not going to go back to 60%, but it's not going to stay at 9 either, and that's going to be helpful. One of the things that Carrie Pierce just sent me yesterday is that they're going to be able to loan to FICO scores down to 600. So whatever program that is, he seemed to think that was significant. Fannie Mae, same thing. Back in the time where we were feeling generous about real estate financing, 2004 to 7, 40% of Fannie Mae's loans had a FICO score over 700 to 740, and now is 70% plus. So that's the difference for California's real estate market, is that we really have financing that's been restricted. I think that's going to start easing up. Even though you have the implementation of Dodd-Frank, the truth is that was implemented in practice in June of 2013. They already implemented everything they saw coming, and now you're going to have private lending fill the gap. If you thought that you would stick a fork in California too, by the way, this is where all of the money that takes risk, called venture capital in our country, and what percentage of it goes to California, is very consistently close to 50%. So venture capital thinks California is not a bad place to hide money. And you know what? They're right. So you guys are in an industry that, to me, is going to have one heck of a good year by surprise. California Association of Realtors, Leslie Appleton Young, came out in October of 2012 talking about 2013 and thought you'd have a 3% price increase. When you didn't have a 3% price increase, what did you have? Like 25? And she came out in October of 2013 and said pretty much the same thing. You ain't going to have a 3% price increase in 2014. You have demand landing on no inventory. Do the math. You have 6 months of inventory, or 3 months of inventory and 6 months of demand. You're going to have multiple offers. You're going to have some price increases. So what it means is you're going to put clients in something that's going to make a lot of sense, whether they hold it forever. And is anybody bothered by 4% mortgage rate? Is that high? You see those articles. Rates soar to 4 1/4. When I was an investor, I became a full-time investor in 1981. I refinanced an almost free and clear house on Spruce Street in Riverside, and my mortgage rate was 17 and a half. So when somebody complains at 4, I just have to say, wow, that's pretty sad. Interest rates were better, that's true, but that's my phone, that's embarrassing. My phone never rings. I mean, it never rings. That's funny. I don't even know how to turn the stupid thing on. So, it's an 877 call. That's not naughty, right? That's just... These calls out of the blue. Anyway, so I think you can look forward to a very good year. I really do. Any questions?
Sure.
Yes?
What do you see after this 2014?
You know, I deal with charts, and so charts tell me when the maturity of a market is done. It's not a time frame for me. It literally, what if you had a 30% price increase here? Well, you would use up a lot of room in the chart. That would make me feel uncomfortable. So it's not a time frame, which is really more comfortable. I hate guessing time frames because I am asked that all the time. But I can say you have this much chart to use up. And it's not just one chart we pay attention to. I've written, I don't know, several thousand pages on this subject at this point. And we really try to research to a ridiculous amount. When I say we, I do mean me. This is what I do. That's my day job, looking at reports that you would think are very dull. For whatever reason, I get a big kick out of it. I have no idea what's wrong with me, but that's what I do. To get to the Leslie Appleton Young in a talk referred to interest rates when they were at their lowest at a 50-year low, and I found that comment interesting. I called her up. I said, "Where did you get that information?" She said, "I got it from CoreLogic." So I called CoreLogic. I said, "Where did you get that information?" She said, "That's how far back our data goes." Well, that's not a good answer. Yes. So I and a friend, Sean O'Toole from Foreclosure Radar, physically went to Washington, D.C. And there they have a Library of Congress, and you can look at microfiche all the way back to the start of our country. We didn't do that, but from 1850, once a month, we looked at the Sunday news ads to calculate interest rates on real estate. So I know for a fact, no one alive has ever seen the rates that we saw when they were at their lows. And that's why I could say that, you know, when Leslie was predicting a 3% mortgage rate hike, or a 3% price hike in 2013, I could say it's going to be over 20, because I realized that $100 grand difference in price, when you pair it with a 3.5% mortgage rate, materialized into nothing monthly. That was going to stop our market. Does that make sense? Okay. So that's why, you know, when you're in the investing business, you want to know that. If you're going to feel like, if you should feel aggressive or shy about buying something. So I think 2014 is going to be a good year. That's all I can say. So enjoy yourself. You guys deserve it. Anybody that survived 2008 through 2010, you know, maybe deserves a break.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you seeing an increase in subject twos and AITDs?
Subject twos? That's a pretty sophisticated transaction, and I know that some of the realtors in this area are very familiar with those. It's not a transaction I probably would see, only because our investors would never come to us for a hard money loan. Taking over a loan subject to is you just take the grant deed and the loan stays in the person's name. I would have to think that there's a lot of it going on because it makes perfect sense, but it's not a transaction I see a lot because I'm just not in the loop for it. Okay, so I wouldn't know how to calculate that, but it makes perfect sense. You've got the lowest interest rates in history, and people that are about equal in equity that might have a situation where they want to move. It makes perfect sense. And personally, I don't see any harm done. I know realtors have a hard time with the risk level there, but as long as prices are on an escalation, they solve themselves pretty fast. Yes.
One of the charts you showed, the building permits are more than double of Riverside in San Bernardino. Why would that be? San Bernardino has more building permits.
Well, I just guess builders are finding that they can. I do, you know, I'll let me take a look at that.
Right there. You passed it.
Well, that's subdivision. Well,
Oh, okay.
yeah, this is not building, this is subdivisions. That's still a ridiculously low number when you go over here and say that they were doing, in other words, there's not enough subdivisions to where you can go, okay, well, we're going to have a big lot of new homes. There's no way. As a matter of fact, when you create a subdivision from scratch, how far are you away from a new house construction?
Year.
It's not 6 months, it's 2 or 3 years. It's a fair amount of time.
Yeah.
So I talked with John Burns. John Burns is a consultant for builders and for hedge funds, and he was on a panel that we had. And I was shown, and he's very familiar with this chart, and he said, yeah, builders, the biggest advantage for them was the land prices were on sale, but they were afraid, and they were being really patient. And then inside of 18 months, land prices are now where they were in 2006. So if they have to buy dirt now, that's the number, and they have to see, it's got a pencil with a price that's pretty outrageous. So you really do have an interesting hole in the market right now, which means that when you have properties for sale, existing homes are going to be the bulk of what's available without the competition of a new builder. That's a big deal. Another chart I pay attention to, and this is, you know, kind of an odd thing, but again, just doing research, you play with different pairings to see if anything meaningful emerges. And something meaningful emerges with the price of new homes and existing homes. How many of you think that at the peak of every market, existing homes are more expensive than new homes? Every time. Every time they intersect, right when you hit 17% affordability, it's sort of like being an appraiser. You look for comps. So that's a confirmation for me when I look at these charts, and I have maybe 5 charts I pay attention to that I think are comps. When they all intersect and show me the peak, we'll all be euphoric about real estate, and you can have everything I own. Because I know the chart is now matured and it's about to be over. And when it's over, you get a reaction called inventory. Inventory builds just like that because sales stop. Because lenders in unison go, we can't say yes. Does that make sense? And all of a sudden, everybody in foreclosure turns into a trustee sale, and then an REO, and those charts all mature and head the other way. To know that in advance is very important. It really is. Okay, I'll let you guys get back to work. Thank you. Hope you had a good time.